You know what's a stretch? To take everything that Jesus said was going to happen in this generation's lifetime, in their lifespan, and read it 2,000 plus years into the future. That's a stretch. As Jesus was leaving the temple, one of the disciples said to him, "Look, teacher, what massive stones, what magnificent buildings." As Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives opposite the temple, Peter, James, John, and Andrew asked him privately. The first temple was destroyed, and before it was, the glory of the Lord rose up, departed from the temple, went to the Mount of Olives, sat down, and then prophesied the destruction of the temple. This happened in the Old Testament. This is the first temple. Here we are now at the second temple. It's been rebuilt. And what does Jesus do? He marches into Jerusalem, proclaims himself as king. He's rejected by Israel. And what does he do? He departs from the temple, goes up to the Mount of Olives to the east, sits down on the Mount of Olives, and what does he do? Prophesies the destruction of the second temple. And sure enough, it happened. And that's what all of this is about, guys. That's what this whole passage is about. The destruction of the second temple. Jesus prophesied it. It happened just like he said it would, and he rested on the Mount of Olives and demonstrated that Israel was going to be destroyed. This is what Jesus was talking about in Mark 13, and this is what John is talking about in the book of Revelation. All this stuff was future for the people during Jesus' time, during his generation, but it's our past. It already happened. It's in all of ours past, but it was in their future. Same with the book of Revelation, the vast majority of it. The Antichrist was Nero. Well, he was the beast, right? Nero was the beast, persecuted the church heavily. And the tribulation was everything that happened in 70 AD. It's done. It's over. Mafuki says, right, so you'd have a partial preterist interpretation. Exactly. And everybody, Mafuki, I think you understand, everybody assumes futurism. He says, well, that's an interesting view. Some of those connections seem like a bit of a stretch. You know what's a stretch? To say this. Truly, I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. You know what's a stretch? To take everything that Jesus said was going to happen in this generation's lifetime, in their lifespan, and read it 2,000 plus years into the future. That's a stretch. That's a stretch. Yeah, this whole premillennial Left Behind series Tim LaHaye stuff is really new. Mafuki says that Nero interpretation is further backed up by the textual variant of Revelation 13, 666 and 616. Yeah, exactly. Let's look at that. His number. This calls for wisdom. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. That number is 666. And there are textual variants that spell it 616. Both are options. How is this number the number of a man? Well, it's quite simple. There's something called gematria. A lot of languages have their alphabet and their number system overlap, okay? A lot of languages have this. So Hebrew has this, actually. Hebrew number system, okay? And let's just look this up. This is Hebrew gematria, and we can just zoom in on this. So Aleph is worth 1. That's the A. Bet is the B. It's worth 2. Gimel is the G. It's worth 3, and so on. Okay, so this is the Hebrew alphabet. And you can see that each letter in Hebrew represents a number as well. Now, here's the idea. If we take, he says explicitly, the number is the number of a man. This calls for wisdom. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast. Or it is the number of a man. That number is 666. So, you've got to calculate it. How are you going to do it? You're going to do it through gematria. We're going to calculate and add up the numbers in order to arrive at 666. If we can calculate the name of somebody and their name adds up to 666, then this is the man that John wants us to look out for. All you have to do is use Hebrew gematria to calculate the number. It is a man's number. It is significant. This construction fits blah, blah, blah. Grammatically, those who contend that the sense is, it is the number of a man, has the burden of proof on them, for they treat the head noun, blah, blah, blah. In light of Johannine usage, we might also add that Revelation 16:18, where the seer clearly uses an arthros, anthropos in a generic sense, he's going on. The implications of this grammatical possibility are simply that the number 666 is the number that represents humankind, so he's going into that right here. The translation man's number suggests that the beast number is symbolic of humanity in general, blah, blah, blah. And then here's where it goes into this. Some manuscripts read 616, and several other witnesses have other variations. Irenaeus' mention of manuscripts that have 616 is balanced by his rejection of such witnesses in this case. As intriguing as the reading 616 is, since the conversion of Nero Caesar's name in Latin by way of gematria would come out to 616, it must be suspect because such a reading seems motivated in that it conforms more neatly to Nero's gematria. Now, here's the point we're making, and this is what Mafuki's bringing up. Why do some manuscripts read 616? Why do they read 616? John gave us 666, okay? It's not that it's supposed to read 616, but John gave us 666, and a bunch of people have said it's 616, it's 616, and it changed it in the manuscript. Why? Because they were like, oh, here's the beast, it's Nero. He must have meant 616 because they used gematria to spell it out in Latin. So that's the point there that Mafuki is making. And of course, you can also get, here's all your discussion right here. Here's your Hebrew gematria. I just showed you guys this off of Google, but here it is in a commentary. Specifically, the beast number is 666. Okay. More significantly, Irenaeus notes that some writers and manuscripts have 616 instead. Based on gematria, the addition of the numerical equivalents of the Greek letters in Caligula's name, Gyros Kaiser, yields 616. Nevertheless, the best solution for the number of 666 uses a transliteration, the name Nero Caesar, into Hebrew letters and numerals. Because the Hebrew alphabet has no vowels, the name Nero Caesar, transliterated from the Latin to the Hebrew, would be Nero Kaiser. Okay, this is what it looks like. I don't know if you guys don't know Hebrew or not, but N-R-O and Q-S-R, Nero Caesar, okay? Adding the equivalents of these letters, Hebrew numerals, N equals 50, R equals 200, plus 0, for Nero, and then 6 plus Q equals 100, plus S equals 60, plus R equals 200. The total is 616, which accounts for the variant reading by Irenaeus. This is how the variant reading came about. They were using this Nero Kaiser, Nero Caesar, and reading. They were like, he's definitely the Antichrist. He's definitely the beast. And his number is 616. And so that's why they did that. Because this is the Latin gematria that we were talking about before. But you can also do this. The corresponding accusative case in Latin, objective in English, Neron Kaiser with an N at the end, this one adds up to 666. Because the N is worth 50. So rather than 616, this is how you get 666. Neron Kaiser, rather than Nero Kaiser. Thus, the name Neron Caesar accounts for both the common reading of 666 and the variant reading of 616. Here's the point, guys. Like all of the early church thought that the beast was Nero. Like all of them. I don't know if you guys know much about Nero. Nero was wicked and evil, man. He was horrible. Nero used to put Christians on poles and light them on fire so they lit up the Roman streets. Nero was an evil, horrible man. I believe he kicked one of his wives to death, just kicked her to death. He would he would dress up and he would chase Christians around and try to eat them. Just absolutely insane what Nero did. And everyone in the early church thought the Antichrist was Nero. Everyone in the early church thought the beast, the number of the beast, 666, was Nero. And you can even see that from the gematria, either into Latin, Nero Caesar, or Neron Caesar. Both of them add up to 616 and 666. If a specific person is in mind, Nero is the best identification of the beast through gematria. Nero was a particular violent person who murdered many, including his own mother. Maybe it was his mother he kicked to death. Indeed, Suetonius quotes a piece of graffiti from 1st century Rome that said, "Count the numerical values of the letters in Nero's name, and in murdered his own mother, you will find their sum is the same." The quotation illustrates the beastly reputation of Nero and the popularity of the use of gematria. Nero was the first emperor to persecute and even behead, crucify, and burn Christians. Thus, he is particularly appropriate candidate for the designation 666. So, and what chapter of Revelation is this? Revelation 13. I think the vast majority of Revelation has already happened, guys. The vast majority of it. And instead, we got this Tim LaHaye left behind stuff where we're all running around looking for antichrists, looking for, all of the seals to be broken open, all of that stuff. It lines up perfectly with Jesus' declaration in Mark. It lines up perfectly with Jesus' declaration in Matthew 24. Listen to the beginning of the book of Revelation, guys. The revelation from Jesus Christ, which God gave to him to show his servants what must soon take place. What must soon take place. Is 2,000 years later soon? Blessed is the one who reads aloud the words of this prophecy, and blessed are those who hear it and take to heart what is written in it, because the time is near. I guess John was a little confused. The time is near. What we meant, John, is the time was 2020. And on it goes. Jesus said in Mark 13, this generation will not pass away until all of these things happened. Over and over and over again. The scriptures say, this is happening soon. This is right around the corner. You better be ready. You better be prepared. The geographic identifications of the land. Flee from Judea and go to the mountains. And Eusebius said that's exactly what happened. Repeatedly throughout the New Testament is the understanding that Jesus is going to judge Jerusalem. And they need to be ready. It's right around the corner. It's about ready to happen. These things must soon take place. If you go to the 70 weeks of Daniel, if you actually go to Daniel chapter 9, you go to the 70 weeks of Daniel, what do premillennials have to do? Well, there's a pause here, you see. There's a pause during this timeline. Most of the things happen, and then there's a pause, and then, things happen. Now we have the church age, and after that, it's going to be unpaused again. How about it happen just like it was prophesied? How about that? And how about when Jesus came and he was rejected, he came also in judgment after he ascended to the Father? What does it say? At that time, people will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. Jesus is going to come with power and glory and execute judgment. This is exactly what he said to those who captured him. Gethsemane, Jesus arrested. Jesus before the Sanhedrin. Those who arrested Jesus took him to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the teachers of the law and elders assembled. But Peter followed at a distance. Blah, 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 blah. People were accusing him. This fellow said, I'm able to destroy this temple and rebuild it in 3 days. Then the high priest stood up and said to Jesus, are you not going to answer? What is this testimony that these men are bringing against you? But Jesus remained silent. You know what that is, guys? That's Isaiah 53. As a lamb before his shearers is dumb, he opened not his mouth as he stands before them. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth. There he is. He fulfills Isaiah 53:7. Jesus remained silent. The high priest said to him, I charge you under oath by the living God, tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God. You have said so, Jesus replied, but I tell all of you, from now on, you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven. In what? Judgment. You have rejected me, the Messiah, the Son of Man, and I am coming in the clouds on heaven to judge this nation, this generation of people. Go back to Matthew 23. Matthew 23 is right before, directly before the Olivet Discourse in Matthew 24. And what's going on in Matthew 23? The 7 woes against the teachers of the law. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You shut the door of kingdom of heaven in people's faces. You yourselves do not enter. Woe to you, teachers of the law, Pharisees, and hypocrites. You travel over the sea to win a single convert, and then you make him twice as much a child of hell as you are. On and on. Woe to you, woe to you, woe to you. You snakes, you brood of vipers, how will you escape being condemned to hell? Therefore, I am sending you prophets and sages and teachers. Some of them you will kill and crucify. Others you flog in your synagogues and pursue from town to town. And so upon you will come all of the righteous blood that has been shed on the earth. On this generation, says Jesus, from the blood of the righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. Truly, I tell you, all of this will come on this generation. I'm coming quickly. I'm coming swiftly. These things must soon happen. Do not close the scroll or the book or the seals, because it's going to be opened This is going to happen right away. This is very, very close. You guys better be ready. I am judging this generation for their rejection. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who kill the prophets and stone those who send to you, how often I long to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, and you are not willing. Look, your house is left to you desolate. I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. And then he foretells the destruction of the temple. Jesus left the temple. Do you see all these things? Not one stone will be left upon another. He gets up on the Mount of Olives, which is exactly what happened in Ezekiel 10 and 11, when the Spirit of God went to the Mount of Olives and declared that he was going to judge Jerusalem and destroy the temple. He did that the first time. Jesus kicked it off the second time. When will this happen? What will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age? What age? Not the end of the world. This is the Greek word aion. It means age, ionos. This is not cosmos. He doesn't say end of the world. He says end of the age. What age? The age of Israel, the age of the Old Testament, the age of all of God's Old Testament people, the age of them ruling and reigning in the place of Christ. When is going to be the end of the age? And Jesus tells them, you're going to see the abomination of desolation. He says you're going to see all these other things happen. They're going to come into the temple and they're going to surround it. Then you should flee. Eusebius says they ended up in Pella. They fled. They listened to what Jesus said over and over. This generation is going to be judged. This generation will not pass away until all these things come to pass. Do not seal up the prophecies in this scroll because it will soon take place. John saying this will soon take place. This is about ready to happen. We're knocking right on the door. And premillennials want to take everything we've just looked at and cast it 2,000 plus years into the future. It's 2020, guys. This must be the second seal right here. It's got to be. Look at everything that's going on. No. The vast majority of the book of Revelation has already been fulfilled when God ended the age of Israel and he has gone to the church age. That's what's going on. So that's my best way of trying to sum up a lot of the biblical ideas on this topic. And I know people are going to disagree, but a lot of people were very surprised that I held to the position I do, and I think it makes much better sense of everything the Bible says on this topic. BG says, to be clear, most Christians between 100 AD and 1900 AD or so have held a similar view to Pastor Tanner. That's correct. This is old stuff, guys. But Left Behind series came in, Tim LaHaye, and the whole Left Behind books and the Left Behind movies and all this type of stuff, and cast this crazy picture of prophecy. And it has captured the hearts and minds of millions of Christians all across the earth. Yeah, Mafuki crushing it as well. There's so much imminent language. The axe is laid to the root. Not he's holding the axe. The axe is laid to the root. There are a lot of imminent things that are happening that John the Baptist and Jesus talk about. And yet we like to take all of those prophecies and read them into our future. Every generation likes to think that all of these prophecies and everything John was talking about, every generation likes to think that it's about their generation. It's not. Martin says, Doug Wilson made the point that Daniel is told to seal up the prophecy, while John in Revelation is told not to seal it up because these things would happen soon. So that would support the reading of shortly come to pass as being meant literally. Daniel 12:9 and Revelation 22:10. Exactly, Martin. Don't seal this book up. It's about ready to happen. Here's where the rubber hits the road with all this. You can't deny that these prophecies are about the temple, okay? If these prophecies are about the second temple and they're finished, then what's our focus right now? Our focus is on what God is doing right now through the church. But since the prophecies are about the temple, you've got this whole strain of Christians who are doing what? They're praying for a third temple to be rebuilt. They're praying that we can get a third temple rebuilt. Why? None of this stuff can happen until we get that third temple. That's the opposite of what the author of Hebrews would have us to do. The author of Hebrews says, forget all of that stuff. If Jews are building a third temple, then they're abandoning Christ. They're shaking their fist at God. There is no more temple to be built. There's nothing else to go back to, says the author of Hebrews. We now have the temple that's not made with hands. We have Jesus Christ who died on our behalf. He's the one we should be looking to. And you have all of these Christians who are wanting a third temple to be rebuilt. They're so focused in what's going on in Israel and the fight between Israel and Muslims and for the Temple Mount and all of this type of stuff. That is not what God would have us to do. He destroyed the second temple, fulfilling the vast majority of the biblical prophecies about it, and we are now in the church age. Let's get after it with the gospel. Mafuki says, now, at this point, it's very important to tell people who've never heard this stuff before, there is still a second coming. We're not hyper-preterists. That's very important. Exactly. Jesus came in judgment in AD 70. He judged the nation of Israel for rejecting him, just like he prophesied he would. This is a magnificent fulfillment to prophecy, by the way, guys. Guys, as a side note, do you know one of the most powerful criticisms atheists like to level against Christianity? You know what it is? That Jesus is a false prophet. Why? Because a false prophet predicted that he was going to come back, and he didn't. So therefore, Jesus was a false prophet. Therefore, Christianity can't be true. That's one of the biggest criticisms leveled against the Bible. And if you have a premillennial understanding, I don't know how you get out of it. This generation, constantly spoken of, constantly. There's actually one in Luke, too, that's really, really good. As the crowds increased, Jesus said, "This is a wicked generation. They ask for a sign, but no one will be given to it except for the sign of Jonah. For as Jonah was a sign to the Ninevites, so also will the Son of Man be to this generation. The Queen of the South will rise in judgment with the people of this generation and condemn them. For she came from the ends of the earth to listen to Solomon's wisdom, and someone greater than Solomon is here. The men of Nineveh will stand at the judgment with this generation and condemn it. For they repented at the preaching of Jonah, and now something greater than Jonah is here." Right here, continues on further down. "Therefore, this generation will be held responsible for the blood of all the prophets that had been shed since the beginning of the world, from the blood of Abel to the blood of Zechariah, who was killed between the altar and the sanctuary. Yes, I tell you, this generation will be held responsible for it all. But first he must suffer many things and be rejected by this generation." And of course, 21:32, "This generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away." Just on and on you go. Hey guys, Pastor Tanner here, and I'm so glad you found our content, and we hope you enjoyed. If you would consider hitting like and subscribe, that would be very helpful. But more than that, I would love if you would head down to the comments and you would offer your thoughts on this subject. It's a very important one, and I would love to hear what you have to say. Thanks for being with us. Take care. God bless, and bye now. Hey there, Pastor Tanner here. We have a lot of videos on the channel relating to various topics and different content, so feel free to peruse. But more than that, this video will probably help you out because it's on a similar topic as this one, so I hope that helps. All right, thanks for being here. Hope that you're blessed. Take care. God bless. Bye now.